There's Masters. Great chance here. That does it. Steve McGavin. And for the first time, Colchester United have won a major final.
Still Garcia, finally the company arrives and it's in! It's a freak-out goal from Ricardo Carvalho. Richard Garcia wants the credit and the shock is on at the bridge.
And it's promotion for Colchester United. They've made it into the Championship for the first time in 69 years.
Porter, being held, there is Porter, and that's Walker!
Hello and welcome to the Beyond the Barside podcast, the podcast that discusses all things Colchester United. I am Aaron J. Thank you very much to everyone who has tuned in on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You're doing us a huge favour, but not as big a favour as those that are sharing the podcast on social media, on X and Instagram. You're doing us a very, very big favour and you're getting the word out to as many U's fans as possible. So thank you very much. It's been a bit of an up and down week for Colchester United. The women's side chalked up their first win of the season, a 4-1 win against Brantham Athletic. However, at the JobServe Community Stadium, it was not to be, as the U's fell 2-0 at home to Barrow. A lack of clinical edge up front, some individual errors and a lack of basics seemed to be evident and ended up costing the U's a little bit. And that's where we're going to start the podcast, because I chatted to Si and Dave about the Barrow game. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Beyond the Barside. I am joined by Si and Dave, and we are post-Barrow 2-0 defeat. We were a little bit more positive. We attacked a little bit more, but ultimately silly mistakes, lack of basics, individual errors sort of contributed to the 2 goals we conceded. Not the best performance ever. Danny said that we need to get the basics right and we need to be a bit more clinical at the other end of the pitch. Still very early in the season, but it wasn't the best performance to come off with. Si, what's your verdict?
Yeah, I think it's just disappointing, wasn't it? You know, we've had last Saturday, beat Shrewsbury, was always on top of the world. Now suddenly losing to Cambridge, then the Barrow performance has brought everyone crashing back down to earth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot being said about budget issues and behind the scenes, off the field stuff. And while I don't think I want to go into that as we talk about the result, I think people have got to understand, regardless of what's going on behind the scenes, the team that Danny put out is better than a 2-0 defeat to Barrow. There's no disrespect to Barrow. Just, we were poor in the basics, in both boxes. We just couldn't defend, couldn't pick up loose balls, left too many players loose. And then at the other end, we weren't making the right decisions at clinical moments in the final third to actually put the ball in the back of the net. Players shooting where they could have passed it, players passing where they could have shot. Yeah, but it's very easy when you're watching to have an opinion you should have done, could have done, in hindsight and all that. But it just felt that when we went that early goal down, it then put a lot of pressure on our forwards, who were then trying a little bit too hard. Obviously, we huffed and we puffed. And I think Danny said it as well. We could probably still be there now. Barrow long gone, and we probably still wouldn't have scored. Mm-hmm. So it was just, it's a lack of footballing basics and doesn't come down to the signings or injuries or that. The players on that pitch were good enough to put a better performance in than what we produced. So it was a frustrating disappointment, but I think we can't lose sight of the fact that it was going well up until the last 2 games. It's only got 180 minutes of football. It's gone downhill. Keep the faith and it will improve. And there is positives, as Dave will probably come on to, about passages of play, and some of the midfield players very good. Lisby came on, played with the wing, which was nice to see him and Sampson starting to combine. So work on the training ground for Danny this week, and hopefully Barnet will be a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I love that you've started with sort of like a rallying cry to get this bit going. It's awesome. Yeah, I think I completely agree. The set pieces, I think, need to be addressed. The zonal marking doesn't seem to be working at the moment, particularly with the amount of players that are just sort of free in the box. It leaves us very vulnerable. The second goal was right in front of me. It seemed like Macy called, hesitated coming for it, and that sort of split second allowed the centre forward to come in between him and the centre half, which is a shame. It's a silly goal to concede, really, particularly when you're already 1-0 down. First goal, again, individual errors. So it's promising in a way that if you tighten up those individual errors, potentially we can start getting things out of games. But as you alluded to, Si, we're not that clinical at the other end of the pitch. Dave, what do you think needs to be done attacking wise?
Well, I think it was a game that just showed with chilling clarity where we're strong and where we're lacking. As you alluded to, Si, I thought the midfield three, I thought Reed played really well.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he had a very good game. I thought Jack Payne played with a lot of energy, a lot of intent, certainly a lot more positive than we have been. And Teddy Bishop was moving the ball quite progressively. And I think that in the first half especially, there was some, between those three, there were some really good passages of play. There was one I think ended up with Sampson's chance, where I think we sort of played out from Rob Hunter right back, and then 3 or 4 really quick passes between Reed, Payne, and Bishop, and we were able to get behind their defence. But once, for everything those three did, once it got to the next line of attack, it just wasn't good enough, frankly. And I think we completed one cross,
Mm-hmm.
the one at the start of the second half that Sampson put in to Jack Payne. It was actually a really clever effort. The speed and the height was really awkward that it came to him. All he could do was just try and guide it into the far corner. It nearly came off. It was a very clever effort, I thought. But at the end of the day, we had a lot of possession. We did create. In the Cambridge pod, we were speaking about how we're not creating any chances.
Mm-hmm.
We were near the bottom of the table, the XG table. But I thought on Saturday we did create what you could class as 5, maybe even 6 clear chances, which for any team in any match is a good return.
Yeah, we were a lot more positive, I thought, on Saturday than we had been in previous games. We created a few chances. I thought Barrow did a very good job at limiting us to chances outside the box. A lot of the time we sort of tried long range shots and they're getting someone just in front of the ball and it's not coming off for us. Sampson managed to get himself into a couple of half decent positions, a couple of good saves from Stanway in the Barrow goal, potentially prevented us from going one up or reducing the deficit. There was an incident where Sampson potentially could have squared it and we could have scored. Si, you alluded to that earlier. But generally, we are trying to create some things. That sort of criticism that I said in the post Cambridge podcast, where we looked to stand off a bit and we were quite passive in the game. We do seem to be a bit more proactive in creating things, so that is a positive to take from it. Si, what do you think about the potential chances that we had?
Yeah, they were well worked. It's just maybe there's indecision or overemphasis on trying to get that goal. We're trying to push it, trying to force it, and when a couple of times, I know we're football fans. Obviously, everyone's very fickle. When we're playing it around patiently, everybody just wants to attack. But there was times I felt that we went forward a little bit too quick. Where actually, if we had a couple more passages of moving the ball around, we could have broken their lines down. Especially when Curry's came on. It's nice to see him come on as a winger,
Yeah. Yeah, it
He's
was
very
good to see
positive.
him in
Take
that
his man
one.
on and see how him and Samson combine later on. But let's be fair, go back into the game as well. There was a very good shout for them to be reduced to 10 men with that studs up lunge on Samson, which resulted in Samson having stitches in his leg.
Yeah.
So see, again, it's another one that could have changed the game. But it just feels it was a very Cole U result regards to the type of goals we conceded and the fact how much we huffed and puffed in front of goal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'd like to see us take many more half chances just to bring the ricochet ball effect in. Maybe go out for a corner, maybe the keeper spills it, follow in, something along those lines.
yeah, definitely. I think when Jaden Williams came on, he had a couple of efforts where he seemed to be a bit more direct, which was nice to see. But thinking about key moments in the game, I don't know whether you guys heard it from where you were. Obviously, Dave, it's the other end of the pitch to you, but Danny Cowley was very vocal on the touchline. He was particularly vocal towards Aurora Edwards. I don't know whether you've heard it or whether you were.
I've heard it happened.
Mm.
Couldn't hear it from over in the East Stand, but yeah.
I could hear the bulk of it, the gist of it, so to speak. It wasn't overly complimentary about how he thought Aurora was going. He seemed to sort of just lose patience with the lack of pressing, the lack of marking, the lack of directness from Edwards. The general consensus on social media is that Aurora doesn't quite seem into it, whether he's low on confidence or whether his mind is on a move elsewhere or his mind is on not wanting to get injured so that he can get a move elsewhere. I don't know, but it seems like Aurora's finding it a little bit difficult out there. Do you think that's fair to say?
Oh, definitely. He's not really produced much of note in any game, and he's missed a few chances. And I just felt like it might be he's like sort of playing within himself, but it just seemed there were a couple of. I noticed it more in the second half, obviously, because that's when going towards the south stand, he's right in front of me for the whole half, effectively. But I noticed he did get it a couple of times when it was just him and the fullback, and he did what Aurora last year did, got the ball, pushed it past, whether it was getting something in or cutting back or keeping possession, but he just wasn't getting that separation from the fullback at any point. He didn't look. I mean, we spoke in the first game. We spoke about him against the Tranmere right back. I think his name's Norman, and
Cameron Norman, yeah,
who is
a rugby league player.
Yes, there is that, and he's probably a League One, maybe even Championship standard defender, just from what the little I've seen of him, but two or three times now.
Nothing little about him, mate.
yeah. But so from what you can understand that sometimes you just come off second best, despite
certainly.
efforts. But I didn't certainly get the impression from the Barrow right back on Saturday. And Ed, you could say if you just hadn't seen any games, you saw Edwards end of last year and in that game on Saturday, you'd argue he's lost half a yard of pace.
Maybe, yeah.
But whether that is, he's not, because if he's going past the defender to draw them into a tackle or just nip in ahead of them, he's going to be on the end of some big challenges, isn't he?
Yeah, certainly.
And that might be in his mind. It might. I'm always reticent to sort of believe that it might. A footballer wouldn't go 100% all the time, but it's when a performance is so different from what we expect and what we know can happen that it must be consideration. And at the end of the day, like you said before, Aaron, it's their job. I mean, if Aurora Oscar Thorne is probably going to double, treble his weekly take home.
Yeah. But
it's got to be in your mind when you're in that sort of position.
Yeah, we'll talk about Oscar a bit later on. I think just sort of thinking towards the deadline day and the Barnet game, but I put it out there to use fans to summarise the Barrow performance in one word. Tim went with blunt, which I thought is quite fair to say. We weren't overly clinical. Gavin thought we were dishevelled, which again, don't disagree with too much. Milo said we were depressing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, Dave agrees with that straight away.
Feel that.
Zach said that they were frustrated, so frustrating. James said indecisive. John just said no. Which
yeah, I get that.
almost rivals trousers from the first time I put this out. And Jacob said disastrous. So the general tone is it wasn't a great performance. Si, how would you sum it up in one word?
I don't know.
It's a tough game.
It is, and also I don't want to sort of go down the words that have already been used. In a way, because the goals we can see is, I think, inexcusable.
Inexcusable. I like that. And also bear in mind, I will be asking this every week now. So get the thesauruses out.
How many words
and let's see. Dave, what's your one word to summarise the Barrow game?
Let's go with oof. That's the word.
Oof.
Oof.
Okay. Oof. Okay.
I'm not
sure
how to spell it. Maybe the transcript on Apple Podcasts will show us. But
yeah, maybe.
It's a game. We will. I'm saying now, we will finish above Barrow this year.
Yeah,
but we don't do ourselves any favours. And I agree with you on the second goal, Aaron. If you look, I obviously couldn't hear it, but from the reaction of the players and Matt Macy's reaction right afterwards,
he said something, even if he didn't say keepers.
The defender, I think it was Powell,
and that stops the defender.
Yes, because I saw a few people saying, "Oh, Powell's at fault for that goal," but he looked around straight away and that kind of. But you said,
yeah.
And Macy just sort of. It was like an acceptance. Usually goalkeepers will do everything they can just to have a go at someone. It was more of an acceptance. So, I think, and ultimately, Matt Macy has made now 3 mistakes since he joined us. So, that's a good ratio.
Yeah.
There's a good ratio. There's no one else. Exactly. There's no one else I'd rather have in goal.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, but at the end of the day, the first goal, he's really unlucky. That was a great reaction to keep the first one out. He needed a bit of backup. But the team we had on the pitch and the chances we made and just didn't hit the target enough.
Yeah.
I think that was it.
And those words were sort of echoed by Danny in his interview post-match. We'll just finish off the Barrow section with the programme notes. Danny seemed a bit put out, I think might be a for want of a better term, by the the reaction to the Cambridge performance. And he listed a few things that he's working against at the moment. One of them being the staffing structure is quite limited. No head of recruitment, no sporting director, no head of medical. Given the amount of injuries we've got, no head of medical does seem a little bit of a concern, but they're working with that at the moment. The reduced budget and the lack of players is something that they're also contending with. So he called for a bit of patience from the supporters, and he felt that we went toe-to-toe with one of the best clubs in the division. It's unlike Danny to put something out like that, so he must have been pretty peeved at the time. Post Barrow game, a lot of the things on social media were, well, with the programme notes and the performances and not being backed, the Cowleys will walk, which
I think it would be a complete personality 180 for them.
But also, you don't just walk out of a job to not have a job. Presumably, they've still got outgoings. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the note, it did feel it felt early to have that sort of program note.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but it did feel like, okay, all right, that seems to come to a head quite quickly. And whether it is frustration and whether it is, I mean, he's very good at knowing how to galvanise a fan base, and whether or not he's getting ahead of it, he thinks that's the best way to do it, and it very well could be. I mean, and like I said, he's right, and I do think I'm not going to talk about them again, but I think a lot of the mood was affected by the kickoffs. But that is the last time I will say
but it
kickoff.
is. It's both those though, like you say. Sorry, but
Hang on.
I think the Cambridge one was exactly what you said. It's the kickoffs and the officials are what we're getting most of the stick, not necessarily the players, and it's been misinterpreted.
Yeah, I think that's I agree with that. I think it is, and one thing, and if we go into like what you mentioned there, I mean we've been relatively positive regarding what Robbie Cowling has done for the club.
Yes.
And feeling that a lot of the criticism he's had, some justified, some unjustified, has maybe gone over the top. But I do think the lack of structure in place at the moment above, well, maybe not above, but assisting.
Yeah.
Danny, with regards to recruitment, medical especially, I think that is unforgivable. You can't, and you can, to a certain extent, I feel like they've been backed as far as to. You'd always like them to be back more, but I think they've got that team. And when Ellis comes back and when Gape gets up to speed, I still think that team could be a playoff team. Depending who's up top, if Sampson goes or whatever. And if Goodwin comes back anytime soon, I think that's still a playoff team. But to have, and it might, one thing that I can see Danny getting gradually more and more angered with, it feels like without putting those things in place, might be taking them for granted a bit.
Yeah.
The cachet they have, the fact that the fans are 100% behind them still. So that, so I think that is an area where we have been let down by the ownership.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. So, Dave, obviously we'll catch up a little bit later in the pod ahead of the Barnet game, but thank you very much for your thoughts on the Barrow game. I know it's quite difficult to come on and try and drain some positives out after a loss, but as I've tried to say on social media as well, we're trying to be as neutral and play devil's advocate to some degree to see the positives and the negatives. And I think you've both done so very well. So thank you very much, guys, and I'll chat to you a bit later.
Cool.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, thank you.
A huge thank you, as always, to Si and Dave there for sharing their thoughts and ideas. And we are in the final week of the summer transfer window. Deadline day is fast approaching. At time of recording, we have already lost Oscar Thorne. The rumour mill is running riot. Awura Edwards, Samson Tavide, Jack Payne, Matt Macy, all suggested outgoings for Colchester United. There need to be some reinforcements, we feel, especially in the number 9 and the central midfield role. And I caught up with Hughes fan Sam, who runs a Substack account called Colu to Cali, which is in the description. And we had a little go at working our way through some potential transfer targets that maybe the Cowleys are looking at already. Hope you enjoy it. And if you do agree with any, leave a comment. Cheers. Welcome back to Beyond the Barside. I am joined by the curator of our introductory music. Sam, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, doing great. Thank you, Aaron. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. We're here to talk transfer targets. So just a little bit of a background for those listening. You have a Substack, Colu to Cali.
That's correct.
And you had an article which was to do with free agents that Colchester could potentially pick up, but it was sort of some time ago. It was sort of around the beginning of the summer, wasn't it?
That's correct. Yes, as you say, Aaron, slightly outdated now, given that must have been May, June time, I would say. And a lot of the players I originally linked us with have now gone and joined other clubs, but mostly League One and League Two teams. So at least it was good to see that I was pitching it more or less at the right level. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at some transfer targets that Sam's brought together. I've had a little look. They are, some of them I have also pitched myself, in particular a young fullback that played under the Cowleys. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Sam, kick us off. Who is the first potential transfer target that we should be looking at?
Okay, so starting off with the defence, and I've gone for a guy called Jubril Orchidina. So recently released by Cambridge at the end of the 24-25 season. Sort of, yeah, I think centre-back is one position where we do need some reinforcements, especially with Ben Perry being out for the season. There's a chance that Jack Tucker gets moved into that CDM position, and we'd only really have Flanagan and Baldwin for senior experienced defenders. So we need some cover, some competition there. So Orchidina, formerly of the Spurs Academy, has last season been at Cambridge, so quite well tested in the EFL. I think would be good signing. Big, strong, physical, would probably want to stay in the southeast as that's where he's from. So would be a good fit for both us and him. And I think at 24 years old, still time for him to be molded into the call you style of play. So not one of those older players where we're only going to get 2 or 3 years out of them. Really somebody who we could, see come on and become a key part of our team for years to come if we snap them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. It's a strong start. Yeah, definitely that sort of younger player that we can mould into a Colchester player is something that definitely shouldn't be overlooked. Who else have you gone for?
So again, just gone for another young defender. And yeah, as you sort of said just there, I think of people like Eastman, Okwongai, defenders who joined us quite young and then made a lot of appearances for us. So I think young defenders, we should bring some in to complement what we've already got with the likes of Baldwin and Flanagan, and doing that to an extent with Tucker, because he's towards the younger end of the spectrum. Jonathan Tomkinson, again, a 23-year-old centre-back released by Norwich, previously had loans at Bradford and Ross County. So our sort of level, really. Also American from Texas. So I think he would be the first American to play for us since Will Packwood, which was quite a while ago if we did get him. So again, just a young defender with some EFL experience, really, released by a team in a higher league. Nothing too controversial at this stage.
Yeah, no, definitely. And hopefully if he were to sign, he'd have somewhat of a better debut than Will Packwood did.
Yeah, I think that was the only game Will Packwood played for us, actually.
It was indeed, yeah. So, two strong centre-halves. I agree. I think as good as a pairing Flanagan and Tucker have been for the few games that we've played, and Jack Baldwin as well, really experienced player, you could probably do with a fourth, and they're two very, very good potential signings to come in that fourth position. Any other defenders for us?
So got Jaden Brown on the list next. And was this the one you're referring to when you said you were talking about fullback that had played under the Cowleys?
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Good to know that we're on the same page. So Jaden Brown, he originally broke through at Huddersfield when the Cowleys were there. And if you go on Google, you can find a lot of articles where Danny's saying he rates him really highly. So taking Jaden Brown from being in the youth team to really being a week in, week out starter at Huddersfield. So that transformation that happened under Danny, who really rated him highly, his attributes. He's been around a little bit since then. Lincoln, Sheffield Wednesday, St Mirren, most recently St Mirren, where he's been released at the end of last season. And it looks like he's slightly lost his way in some aspects, has had a few off-the-field disciplinary issues to do with motoring offences. So I think that's derailed his career a little bit. But I think that Danny really rates him highly, and I guess Nicky by extension. And if they can just put a hand around his shoulder and get him firing again, he's still only 26. He could develop into a really good asset for us. And we've got Ellis Indolo, who's currently out injured. So not really too much timeline on when he'll be back. got Powell, the young left back 2 on loan, who looked good against Oxford in the game. I was at that game a couple of weeks ago. That is the last game I went to, as I'm currently on holiday. Slight tangent. So don't expect me to come in with too many bits of analysis on the Shrewsbury and Barrow games. But yeah, good to have a sort of an asset, somebody who we can just invest into. And I think Danny Cowley, I think is really a manager who gives players second chances, who does offer that kind of mentorship, who doesn't rule in a really sort of disciplinary way, potentially, and could give Brown that route back into playing regularly.
Yeah, definitely. I think if budget allows, which obviously that's been a point of contention recently, I'd love to see someone with the quality of Jayden Brown come in. I don't know whether having Powell, Vincent Young, Hunt, whether we're a bit too well endowed in that area, I don't know, but certainly a player that's got lots of quality, and he's got those Cowley connections. Any more defenders, or are we moving into the midfield?
A couple more defenders, but I can run through them fairly quickly. Dan Potts, the first one, sort of 31-year-old centre-back, left-back, so covers a couple of positions. Did play on loan at us in the 2012-13 season.
I remember well.
All defeats the games he played in, but coincidental. And has had this run recently of getting Luton from League 2 to Premier League. So I think that's something that's a real plus point for him, that he's taken this team up the leagues, which is what we're trying to do. So he's got that winning mentality, and also originally from Barking, which is the Cowleys' part of the world. And I've noticed that they do like to sign players not only who've played at their previous clubs, but also who do come from that South Essex, East London part of the world, like with Jack Baldwin also being from Barking. So I think Dan Potts would fit the Cowleys' sort of philosophy well, and his brother, also Freddie Potts, just breaking through at West Ham right now, which is good to see. Going back to players who played under the Cowleys, I spotted Callum Howe at York City, was in the Vanarama National Team of the Year last season, and did play under the Cowleys at Lincoln when they got out of the National League and into League 2. So he's 31, like Dan Potts, and has never really played in the EFL, predominantly played at non-league. But I think the gap between League 2 and the National League does seem to be narrowing. So I think that he is somebody who could come in and do a job. And Danny seems to have spoken highly about him in news articles, even though once Lincoln did get into the league, he didn't continue to be a part of that and dropped down to non-league. But Danny does seem to have spoken highly of his personality in previous news articles. So that is a positive thing. Then just a couple of loan signings, just to round off the defenders. One would be Brandon Cover, young Leicester prospect, can play CDM or right back, being on loan at Port Vale and Fleetwood, described as tough tackler and composed on the ball, which I think are things we both quite sorely need right now. And also born in Colchester, so
okay, yeah,
advantageous in that respect. And then rounding off the defence with Jamal Baptiste, who's a 21-year-old centre-back at Sheffield United. Not really been part of Ruben Sayers' plans this season, so might be looking for a drop down the leagues, and originally comes from Redbridge, East London, so might be looking for that opportunity to move back a bit closer to his family. So that sort of rounds off the defenders really. Yeah,
definitely. Some great picks there. But Baptiste, did he come through at West Ham as well?
Yeah, originally at West Ham. I think might have spent some time at Man City in the academy as well. So he's been sort of bouncing around academies a bit, but has never really got that baptism into proper, senior week in, week out football. So, I mean, I think he probably wouldn't be somebody who we'd sign just because he probably has aspirations of playing championship at least, but on a 3-month loan just to get involved in that EFL style of football, which is can be a bit more tough than what you'd be used to in an academy. I think that could be a beneficial move for all parties, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving into the midfield, potentially an area where we need the cover. Ben Perry out for the season with an ACL, MCL injury. Dominic Gape, there's question marks over quite how fit he is, although the cameo he played coming on against Cambridge, he didn't look too out of place. question marks over Reed and Bishop playing together. Do they bring the best out of one another? I don't know. I think we'll be in the market for a CDM. What do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think Reed and Bishop, perhaps they're too much the same player. I think my, ideal lineup would be one of those two, then plus a Perry or a Tucker. So somebody who does a bit more of the tackling, the ball winning, the field, leg work, and then somebody who is going to be a bit more box to box. And as you say, I think playing Bishop and Reed together perhaps doesn't give us enough defensive cover. So in terms of my list for midfielder signings, the first one I've flagged is Ryan Tunnicliffe. He's 32 years old, recently released by Adelaide in Australia. And he was on one of those PFA free agent friendly game lists. You discussed that briefly on the on Barrow podcast. Jaden Brown also cropped up on one of those lists. So is looking for a new team in the EFL, we would assume from that. Was signed by Cowleys at Portsmouth, head of the 21-22 season, so they clearly rate him. And I think that Ryan Tunnicliffe, he's really played for a lot of teams in the EFL, and he's somebody who would give us a bit of grit, a bit of tenacity in central midfield, a bit like someone like Richie Smallwood at Tranmere, who played well against us a few weeks back. Just somebody to do that legwork, to get kind of tackles in, to mop up, be able to recycle play and get us forward, and somebody who is just not afraid to get stuck in, which is what you need when you're in the fourth tier, really. So I think he'd really come, really be good in that 4-2-3-1 as the more defensive player of the two.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the question of having a bit more grit and tenacity in the middle of the park is definitely something that I felt we could have done with on Saturday during the Barrow game. I thought, as well as Reed and Bishop did, we lacked a little bit of press. So someone like that would be rather nice. Any other midfielders, particularly in the central role?
So next one is Joe Morrell, and I have seen people saying stuff about that he could potentially come to us because he has played with the Cowleys at Lincoln and at Portsmouth. So the fact that the Cowleys often do sign their old players, we saw it with Anderson, Lyle Taylor, etc. This is, got the rumour mill turning that Joe Morrell would be somebody who could potentially consider signing for us. The fact he played in the World Cup as recently as 2022 does make it seem slightly questionable whether he would want to come here. But, we have had World Cup players in the past, like Bongani Kumalo, did sign for us like 4 years after scoring against France in the World Cup. So it's not out of the question that we would sign a player of that kind of international caliber. I think with Joe Morrell, just too many injury outs. He hasn't actually played a competitive game since January 2024. So he's just been out and struggling with injury for so long. But I did see an article where they interviewed him, I think it was The Guardian, and he was saying he's just raring to get back on a football pitch, get back into the game. So I think it's just when budgets are quite limited, he'd probably command a decent wage, and is that risk that you sign him and he just gets injured again? I think that's one of the reasons we didn't re-sign, say, Anthony Scully, because again, players, they're getting to that point in their career when they, it's sort of this late sort of 25 to 30. That is probably when they're going to be expecting to earn the most money. It's probably the most key point of their career. So, they're not going to sign for peanuts, even if they have had injury issues. So I think with Joe Morrell, it's a case of, it's just to the Cowleys. They obviously rate him from Portsmouth and Lincoln, but would he sign for us? Would he want to drop down? Maybe he could go somewhere in League One or overseas. Would we want to take the risk that we sign him on decent money and he suffers the same injury? So I think he would be a fantastic player to have at the club. Also born in Ipswich as well, so just up the road. But we'll see. I mean, no disrespect to him at all. I would love to have him, but as I said, quite question marks around his fitness. Yeah,
and it is difficult because obviously we've taken risks on players with fairly sketchy injury records before. Obviously, you mentioned one of them of Anthony Scully. but then we're in a more precarious position in terms of budgets at the moment. Robbie Cowling made that very clear that the budget has been reduced. We didn't re-sign Lyle Taylor sort of as a result of that. So, is our hand forced in terms of we can't afford to take those risks?
Yeah.
But then again, with a lot of these players that are doing the PFA camps, we're getting closer and closer towards, well, we're getting further and further into the season. Obviously, they can sign after the deadline.
Yeah.
It's still a long time without a wage to go with, and you don't know what they've got to pay for.
Yeah.
So does a year at Colchester potentially act as a stepping stone to get themselves back into work and up the ladder again? So it is a risk, but I do think in some cases it's one that will pay off. I mean, we're certainly seeing it with Teddy Bishop at the moment that we took that punt on him, and he's a very, very good player. So yeah, I like the sound of signing him, but as you say, it's one of those things that potentially we can't afford to do. Anyone else in the midfield, or are we going out wide?
Going to go out wide. So the wide men in the 4-2-3-1. The one I flagged here is Hakeeb Adelakun, who I'm surprised he's still a free agent at this stage, because he's a winger who can cut in and score goals. Played for Salford last season, scored 13 in League Two, which is pretty impressive. I think he would have been our top scorer with that goal tally last year. But and having watched the first few games of the season and listened to the podcast, it seems that one thing that comes up again is that there's perhaps some doubt over whether the current wingers that we've got are really quite yet contributing in terms of scoring goals. Something that was brought up in respect to Makande, although he's not very good going forward. I think from what you, Si and Dave have spoken about, you'd like to see the wingers that we have just being a bit more cutting edge in front of goal. And that's why I'm surprised that Adelakun is still a free agent this late in the transfer window. I know that free agents can be signed even after the standard transfer window shuts, but surprised he's a free agent at this point, given that he's very proven at this level with Scunthorpe, and then Lincoln was there 21 to 24, so played with Teddy Bishop. And he's clearly got the attributes to play on the wing, pace, a bit of strength, can cut inside and score. So I think he'd contribute our team. Yeah, he would complement the players that we've got very well.
Yeah, definitely. I think players like Adelakun coming in potentially hinge on who goes. Obviously, Oscar Fawn at time of recording hasn't gone, but we've had a bid accepted.
I saw that. That's a very good point. It does depend on if we lose anybody in that department, and then the situation surrounding Samson, which we'll get onto when we talk about strikers, which also has the potential to dictate who we bring in between now and the end of the transfer window and potentially beyond. So it's a good point that somebody like Adelakun, in that prime of his career, 29, would command a decent wage.
Yeah, definitely. And there's obviously a question mark around Aurora Edwards as well. So although sort of the rumblings on social media have been very specific about centre half, centre mid, centre forward, it's not unwise to consider what the wide options are out there. Have you got any others, or are we moving straight to the attackers?
Going to move to attackers. I think for wingers, we do have a decent complement of wingers right now, so I won't go through too many. I think Adelakun was one that I was just like, how is he not signed for anybody? Because, if we want to sign players for positions where we've already got good options, they need to be sort of better than what we've already got, or very young players who we're going to bed in. There's no point really signing players who are similar to what we've got, but I think Adelakun are just flagged for the ability to score goals. So I will move on to strikers. And the first one is actually a guy who came through our academy, Freddie Ladapo. Many listeners will remember him. He only played a handful of games for us before dropping down into non-league and then scoring a lot of goals, getting to Crystal Palace in the Premiership, where he never really played, and then found a decent EFL level with Ipswich, Plymouth, Rotherham, and transformed into a pretty decent EFL player, playing for clubs at a higher standard than Colchester for most of his career. So Freddie Ladapo, I really flagged him because he's at Huddersfield right now, age 32, and he was signed last summer from Ipswich. He was a player who I suggest in one of my articles we get from Ipswich this time last year. Went to Huddersfield, and given that their team is pretty stacked with attacking talent, they've got Alfie May, Joe Taylor, obviously formerly on loan at the Youths, had a very good first half of the 23-24 season. And they've got Dion Charles. So those three strikers for League One, it's like, how do you play all of those together? And then you've got people like Freddie Ladapo. From what I can see, he didn't even start a game last season for Huddersfield. He just came off the bench because they've got such good attacking players. So I think he is ripe for a move with his Huddersfield contract expiring in 2026. Summer, he is just trying to find anything to, add a bit more fuel to the rumour mill. He is from Romford, which is, again, that Danny Cowley part of the world. Danny Cowley follows him on X. So I appreciate that. That is quite low-hanging fruit, but it's, it is also perhaps they know each other. And yeah, a good EFL goal-scoring record, and played with Kane Vincent-Young at Ipswich, so does know squad members already. And from what I can see, he's never really had any injury issues, which is something that is a pretty big advantage for him. A lot of these 30-plus strikers, they do come with big sort of warning signs around the injury record. For example, Reece Healy, who I had on this list before he signed for Barrow on loan, obviously having played for us before and having a decent goal-scoring record in the EFL and with Toulouse in the French second division, I thought he'd be a good signing. But injury question marks, and he went off injured in the game against us.
5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah,
5
so
minutes.
yeah, so I think Ladapo, the fact that he has never really had any recurring injury issues is an advantage if we do want to. Perhaps I don't think we'd have to spend a lot of money on him to get him, because he is going to be released at the end of this season unless something crazy happens and the other strikers get injured and he becomes the main striker. So I reckon we could get him for quite a small fee, or get him on loan perhaps. Appreciate we are getting to near the end of the transfer window now, so I think he'd be a good one for us.
Yeah, I like it. I like Freddie Ladapo, and it always he's a big focal point to kick up top. So if we're going to insist on that long ball from the back, Freddie Ladapo is ideal for that role, really.
Exactly. Being the one in the 4-2-3-1, you have to be able to finish and hold up. You need to be just sort of a player who kind of combines all those attributes. And I think Freddie Ladapo, even though we never really got to see that much of him in a youth shirt, he's a good example of that from what he's subsequently done in the EFL, which is very impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Who else? What other centre forwards have we got?
So I've gone for Dan N'Londulu, who is a 26-year-old striker, currently contracted to Bolton, but he's out of favour there. Did play on loan at Lincoln in the 21-22 season, so he sort of knows Teddy Bishop from that time. So some connections to the current squad. He that's Lincoln strike force from 21-22 with also some former youths, Tom Hopper and Anthony Scully. That was a season that Scully got 15 goals for Lincoln, so really banging him in that year. And N'Londulu, he was a loan on Cambridge last season, is out of favour at Bolton to the point where they said he's probably not going to be involved this season. So right for a loan or a transfer for a low fee. As you said earlier, I don't think we've got massive amounts of money to sign players right now. So again, I think a lot of this exercise for me was finding players perhaps in League One, like Ladapo, who aren't really going to be playing a key role in the squad and might welcome that opportunity to drop down a league, but be playing week in, week out. So Dan N'Londulu is another example of that kind of player.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. Any more?
Yeah, so I've decided to just drop down to non-league and look at a couple of strikers there. This is something that I wish we had done more as a club, signed players who've scored a lot of goals in non-league. We tried to do it with Dan Holman a few seasons ago, but it didn't really work out. And I was excited about that because you hope we'll find somebody who'll get like 25 goals for us, then go on to a higher level. You see a lot of people like that who kind of move up the leagues. So somebody a bit like,
well, Vardy's the main example, isn't he? Coming from Fleetwood, and then you've got Will Davies at the moment at Fleetwood again. That's still in
I wish we'd
bits.
taken a look at.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe we did. I wish we'd signed. But yeah, well, somebody like Andre Gray. Wally Watkins. Whoever. Players who climb the leagues by way of scoring a lot of goals.
Mm-hmm.
First one I've flagged is Matt Rush, who's currently at Boreham Wood in the National League, helping me get promoted last season out of National League South. Got 16 goals in 29 games so far for them, which is good return. Just a player that will put the ball in the back of the net, really, I think. And those are hard to find because we're not going to be signing free scoring players from other League Two clubs because they're going to want to hold on to them. So we've got to find these goal scorers ourselves, either dropping down from higher or coming up from lower. Obviously, if when I say dropping down from higher, a player who perhaps isn't getting a look in like a Championship club or a League One club, but who we think could drop down to us and score goals. So then Matt Rush doing the opposite of that, non-league, scoring a lot of goals, 24 years old, potential to develop, push on. He's an Essex man from Brentwood. He's played in Harlow, Braintree, albeit not with the Cowleys, Chelmsford. So sort of, yeah. And I guess these players, they probably don't want to be moving hundreds of miles. We don't often sign players from like the West Country or the kind of north of England. So yeah, somebody who's knocking around the kind of Essex, Southeast London, lower leagues and could come in and score quite a few for us. I think Matt Rush could be a great option.
Yeah, definitely. So you say a couple of strikers from non-league. Who is the second non-league gem that you've identified?
Second is George Alexander at Eastbourne, formerly of Chelmsford. Would be a league below Matt Rush. Eastbourne are in the National League South. Also, he's 24. He scored 24 goals in 43 games at Eastbourne. I mean, with these players, I've never actually seen them play, unlike a lot of the EFL players who I've actually seen play a lot. But so I'm not claiming to be an expert, but you can see they've scored a lot of goals, and you think, why couldn't they keep on doing that at League Two? Because we've seen it done so many times before. So simply men who will put the ball in the back of the net, and I think that is something that we have been lacking. You guys have talked, perhaps on previous podcasts, of some of the wingers lacking a bit of an end product, but I think there's also an element that we don't really have enough like fox in the box type players. Mm-hmm. So when wingers are going down the flanks, they need to hold it up a bit because no one's there and the move kind of dies. So I think just having somebody who would always be in the right place, a poacher, would really help us out. Yeah, definitely. And I think in recent years, it's something that we've lacked generally, potentially since Kevin Lisby. So it's a long time since we've had that elusive 20 goal a season striker. Sam, some great picks, some really good picks. If anyone does have their own pick, or perhaps you've agreed with Sam and you want to share that, actually, I picked that, or I signed them on Football Manager once, or FIFA, depending on who that is, leave a comment on this episode and let Sam know what you think. But Sam, Substack as well, Call You to Cali, is that right? Yeah, that is the one. I'll try and put out some more stuff on there. So yeah, Call You, then to the number, then Cali, CALI. Perfect. Maybe and there is a link in the description or something. I feel absolutely. That's the done thing. Yeah, absolutely. And that is, of course, containing some Call You content. Sam, great suggestions, great picks, and we'll see how many you get right come deadline day. Cheers, mate. Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Big thank you to Sam there for taking part and suggesting some pretty reasonable suggestions and some adventurous ones as well. So a good mix for people. And if you've got your own transfer suggestions, feel free to pop a little note in the comments on the episode, wherever you're listening to. You can comment on all platforms now. So that is very, very nice indeed. But there is a nice thing that I saw on social media where 3 U's fans
are taking on quite an impressive challenge in February. They will be walking from the JobServe Community Stadium all the way to the Cladara Abbey Stadium in Cambridge ahead of our away fixture against Cambridge. I spoke to Hughes fan Johnny to hear what challenge they're undertaking and why they're doing it. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Beyond the Barside. I am joined by Hughes fan Johnny, who is taking on quite an impressive challenge along with two other youth supporters. So there's going to be three of you, Johnny, taking on a walk from the JobServe Community Stadium all the way to the Cladara Abbey Stadium in Cambridge on February the 16th. You're setting off.
Yes, so we start on the Monday and we're hoping to be there in time for the 7:45 kickoff on the Tuesday.
It's an incredible feat of stamina. Looking at the statistics, as the crow flies, it's 37 miles. But really, you're looking at between 60 and 70 miles overnight. Yes. And you're doing this for a good cause. You're doing this for Mind, is that right?
That is indeed, yeah. Mind that's focus on mental health and obviously support people that are struggling with mental health. So yeah, we're doing it for Mind.
Nice. So what about Mind was it that attracted you three to go out and do this challenge?
So we were thinking, us three boys, obviously it's me, another guy called Jack Armstrong and Adam Law. We're thinking about a charity that would help everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought people struggle with mental health. People don't speak about it. And obviously people at football, I don't know if you saw the famous video of the two guys sitting in the football stand. And obviously they were both friends. And obviously one was struggling with mental health but didn't speak about it. And then obviously he took his own life. But we wanted to focus on something that would be within football as well.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we think mental health is obviously a big factor, especially with players as well these days that receive loads of abuse online. Obviously it affects their mental health. So we thought, why not go for a charity that we can link in with football as well as the wider society? So yeah, that's why we chose Mind.
Absolutely, and it's a charity that do great work for lots of different people, regardless of background and you know, mental health issues. They can arise at any time for any person of any age from any background. So it's very, very important that you're raising awareness about that. So a big thank you to you three for doing that. Obviously, we're talking about what you're doing it for. Specifically what you're doing, you're walking between 60 and 70 miles from Colchester to Cambridge. Have you got a route mapped out yet?
Not at the moment. We've been looking at potential routes, and obviously when you're driving to Cambridge, you would go up to Ipswich. So you'd go Ipswich way. But from the route we've looked at so far, we're thinking about going up towards Sudbury and then cutting across. We've had a look. It's about 21 hours in total of walking, give or take. So obviously that's depending on the weather as well. So obviously February it's going to be a bit cold. So we're planning on doing it over 2 days. So we'll start Monday. We're planning on staying in a hotel somewhere for the night to regain our energy. Then Tuesday, the boat sets sails and we're on the final stretch.
It's incredible. And obviously if there is anyone that is a hotelier around the Sudbury, potentially Bury St Edmunds sort of region, get in touch with Johnny and see if you can put them up for a night. Obviously, it's great that you're doing the walk. It's great that you're raising awareness for mental health, but there is a Just Giving page as well, which we will put in the description of this episode. It's an incredible challenge. It's one that shouldn't be taken lightly. What do you hope to get from Hughes fans? What sort of support do you hope to get? Do you hope for just donations, or do you want any Hughes fans to be cheering you on at the finish line? What are you hoping for?
Oh, obviously there's going to be quite a few Hughes fans up there because obviously Cambridge not too far. So we're hoping to kind of spread the word, get everyone to kind of wait for us at the finish, and obviously if people want to cheer us on, they can. And Yeah, the main objective is to tell people that it's okay to say you're not okay, and for people to talk, because I think the main part people struggle with is actually talking about mental health. And I'm hoping us doing this and raising awareness about it will give people that kind of urge to talk if they're struggling. So it's kind of based on the fact that we're trying to support people as well as them supporting us doing this.
Yeah, definitely. It's really admirable stuff. And yeah, so best of luck to you, Jack and Adam. It's a great challenge that you're taking on. So I urge all U's fans, donate, support, get yourself involved. But Johnny, thank you very much for sharing this with us, mate.
Cheers, thank
Big
you very
thank you
much.
to Johnny there for coming on and sharing the challenge that he'll be doing with fellow U's fans, Jack and Adam. And they have a Just Giving page, which will be, I don't know why I've said that, which will be in the description for this podcast. So this episode, go down, have a read of the description, click the link, donate if you are able to. It's a very noble cause that they are raising money for. And of course, Cambridge aren't our opponents on Saturday. We've already played them and we got soundly beat. But we're away at Barnet. At time of recording, over 900 U's fans will be making the trip across to Barnet, and I will be one of them. I hope to see many of you there. And I spoke to Si and Dave for a little bit of a preview of the Barnet game. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Beyond the Barside. I'm joined as ever by Si and Dave, and we are ahead of the Barnet fixture away from home. The U's travel to Barnet on Saturday. It's coming off the back of 2 losses, but potentially this could be the time where we turn things around. Strong away following, always at Barnet. They reckon we've sold nearly 900 seats at the moment. So that's not too bad for a 1,500 allocation. So things could be on the rise for Colchester United, but we were hit with a little bit of a blow on Saturday where Danny Cowley confirmed that Colchester United had accepted a bid for young Oscar Thorne. He also followed that up by saying that they thought that Tavide was going to go, and he didn't. So at time of recording, Oscar Thorne hasn't left yet, but it seems like he has transferred to a team in League One in the north of the country. Some people say Salford, some people say Stockport. Rumours of a £250,000 fee. It doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world, but it is a shame for a young player to go. Dave, what are your thoughts on Oscar Thorne?
I agree. I think it's surprising. I think it's quite similar to Ian Vane, whereas wasn't someone who I saw going immediately. I thought it was very early for him to go, because to be honest, I liked Ian Vane, but I hadn't seen anything that suggested that he would be a League One Championship player. But I thought he needed a couple more seasons with us, and I feel the same with Oscar Thorne. I think Oscar Thorne, what he does have that Ian Vane doesn't, is a wider range of as a player. His profile fits into lots of different areas, so he could develop into an excellent bombing forward right back, a right winger, even a wing back because he's very athletic. But I think again, it seems early, and if we can get a good fee for him in an area where, well, I say we're stacked, but earlier on, I mean, we've seen in how many games this year that our wide players just aren't producing. But we do have options there. So good luck to him. It's a surprise. Would have liked him to have stayed, but it seems to be a good bit of business by the club if it does go through.
Yeah. So anything to add?
I agree. I think in the perfect world, we would have kept him for his development potential and what he could offer. But in the here and now, especially how we are up against certain holdbacks with the budget we keep talking about, I think if we can get a decent fee for him, probably the winger out of all of them that you'd be least worried about losing this season, then I think it's a good bit of business all round, and good luck to him. I hope he does well. He's got potential to be a very good player. So all we can do is wish him well and, see what the future brings for him.
Yeah, definitely. And it does sort of reiterate what Danny Cowley said in, that was a bit of turn up for the books, wasn't it? What Danny Cowley said in his programme notes ahead of the Barrow game, that we are a selling club. So presumably he's well aware that we have to have players go out the door to bring players into the club. And perhaps that's one of those situations that where by allowing Oscar Thorne to move elsewhere, potentially one or two players can come in and bolster the squad in areas where we're perhaps not as stacked. So, I think for the most part, it's not the worst decision, but it's never great to let a good young player leave the club, but that is the nature of our business model, isn't it? So,
and just because it feels a little bit before their time, like Shamadou and Sammy, they'd given us a lot and got to that point where they earn the next step. But yeah, just feels a bit early, but yeah, like we said, good luck to him.
Yeah, definitely. And that obviously makes the selection a little bit easier going into the Barnet game. You mentioned, Dave, that the wingers aren't really firing at the moment. We spoke earlier in the podcast about Awura Edwards. As it stands at time of recording, he's still at the club, but there are rumours that he's going elsewhere, but we won't go into that too much because we might be wrong. And why talk for 10 minutes about something that hasn't happened? But then also J.K. Gordon, I thought he struggled against Barrow, so I don't know whether he retains his place. Adrian Akande looks positive, but then the end product isn't quite there. But then Kyrese Lisby came on the right-hand side and he looked all right. And linking up with Tavide, is it time for Kyrese to get that elusive start?
I was going to say the same thing based upon, the general feeling from the last two games. Go into a team where, that Barnet will attack us, that will give potentially space for players with pace to work in. And, Danny is very aware and very, very good. There isn't a better manager around, certainly in the lower leagues, at knowing how to bring a fan base back on side. Not that we're offside, but not with him, but just the general mood around the team. And one way to do that would be to get Lisby in the starting lineup. You've gone quiet, Aaron.
I have gone quiet. I muted myself for a moment. Yeah, definitely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and it brings him into the team, and it allows him to show us what he can do, really, doesn't it? As well as Kyrese Lisby, there's also the question of the middle of midfield. Neither Arthur Reed or Teddy Bishop did anything particularly wrong. I thought they both had fairly decent games, but there obviously does appear to be the scenario that playing both together limits one or the other because they're restricted in what they can do. Do you think we stick with the same midfield pair, or do you think that Dominic Gape comes in for his first start in a youth shirt?
Yeah, so that's a tough one, isn't it? No, I think Danny probably will stick with the three of them that started. Personally, I disagree. I think having someone like Dominic Gape come in as a holder midfield, especially if we were to start Kyrese on one side, Edwards the other side, Sampson through the middle, there's a lot of pace there. And they'll spread the pitch, spread the ball, spread the length in our formations. We need that holding midfielder who's going to sit and bridge the gap between the back end of midfield and the defence, which Gabe can do quite well. And that'll actually probably allow Reed or Bishop and Payne to get more involved on the ball in space and to create openings through the lines for the three forward players. I just feel that if we are going to go with pace and attack, having Reed and Bishop will cause pockets of space to appear between the midfield and defence, which will get exploited. And especially with how some of our marking and leaving men free has been at the moment, is something we are already vulnerable to. Why invite something that has a potential solution staring at the face in Dominic Gape. So my gut feeling is that Danny will stick with what he's got. But personally, I think Gape should start for those reasons.
I agree with you, but I don't. Sorry, Aaron.
No, I think we're going to say the same thing, so go for it, mate.
Okay, I agree with you, Si, but I actually think Danny will start Gape. Because I think looking at the Barrow game, and it kind of did come to pass that we had a lot of the ball. We were, and like we did allude to towards the start of the pod in the review section, that there was some good passes of play there. And when you're at home against a team like that, and then like we created enough chances to win the game, we didn't have the quality ahead of that midfield. But away from home against Barnet, and a Barnet team who are unfortunately starting to turn it around, I think have won their last 2 games. I think Danny will want that extra protection, and you sort of, I mean, the first goal against Barrow was almost, it's almost a trade-off you invite, knowingly, having 3 technicians in midfield that don't have that instinct to go in.
Yeah.
Because I think there was one just before they scored, actually, where they got in the same position down our right, and got another ball into that same area. It just wasn't quite of the same quality. And the same thing came from the right hand side for the goal. Good save by Macy, but still no one's got that instinct to go. And I'm not saying they would have got there, but just try and affect the guy who scored the goal and the guy who made that run. Like I said, that's a trade-off. Really, you might say, okay, that might happen. But with the players on the midfielders we got in there, they're going to create enough chance in the game to counter whether that happens. But away from home against a better team, I think Barnet are a better team than Barrow. We will be under a lot more pressure. I think it just makes sense to have Gape back in. And I also think if he's fit, and I don't know if there's been any information about why Anderson's not been playing, because again, he did a really hard fitness session. It wasn't a fitness test, it was a fitness session while the game's gone, and he was involved in the round robin that the subs do pre-game, and the shooting drills, and with a full week off, if he's fit, I think, because whatever he's got isn't limiting him keeping his fitness up, clearly. Whether it's something else, whether it's something that might be affected by sort of twisting motions or change of direction, I don't know. But I think, again, for that solidity and his work rate, he might come in, and that might mean Kyrie goes to the bench. It might mean Kyrie starts on the left.
Yeah.
If we assume Aurora is still there, I think he will start Aurora again, just because what we know he can do. But I'm not sure on the wings, but I do think Gape will start, and I think he'll start Reed.
Okay.
Just because the last 2 games, Bishop has not played badly at all.
You'd be annoyed if you were Reed and you got dropped.
Exactly. Reed has just been better. I think more influenced the game more.
Yeah.
And we're trying to be. We've lost 2 home games in a week. Not good. But if we try and be positive, imagine 3 seasons ago discussing whether we have Teddy Bishop or Arthur Reed starting, the other one coming on.
Yeah.
That's his
position to be in.
That's his positive.
Yeah.
I do think Reed will start.
Yeah, he's done enough, definitely. But going back to what you say about the goals we conceded against Barrow and Cambridge, 2 of them were from set pieces, which were caused when they got the ball and we had no holding midfielder back. So therefore, someone has come in from behind, given the free kick away, which has then led the ball going to the box, which they scored from. So there's another reason to need the holding midfield role, I think. And I've said it before, I haven't at times been Arthur Reed's biggest fan, but I completely agree. He's played himself into that team. And I personally agree with Dave. He feels so hard done by if he was dropped, because he's actually trying to do stuff and he's scored and creating chances.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Obviously, we're going into an away fixture where we're going to be well backed. Barnet got a victory at the weekend, so they're going to be feeling a little bit more positive at home. How do you think we'll get on, Si? Well, how do you think we'll fare?
Hopefully we're going to win. Purely because I've said to my wife that I'm not getting my hair cut until Colchester win 2 games in a row. So I'm already looking a bit hobo-ish. So we need to start picking up these points. No, Giant side, I think we are due a result. We are going to come back. We are going to produce the goods. Week on the training ground, iron out these mistakes, and we're going to win 2-1.
2-1. I like it. Dave, what are you thinking?
I think we'll draw. I can see a 1-1. I think I'd just like to see a bit more the same sort of fluency, but obviously a week on the training ground, work on that end product, and just with regards to the defense, I'm not. I'm concerned with sort of the number of set pieces we're conceding, but I do think that is something that we will resolve.
Mm-hmm.
They will look at that. They will find solutions. Of absolute faith that the Cowleys will find a way to. So that's a sort of communication issue. It's a players knowing their role issue, which I think will be resolved. We'll come back to this next week, won't we? With letting 3 corners, and so
someone scored directly from a corner.
Yeah, but no, I think a draw. I think a good battling draw. But if we if we create another 5 or 6 chances like we did on Saturday, I can see us winning the game 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
But no, happily, I will take a draw on Saturday.
Take a draw on Saturday. I'm gonna say that we'll win. I think we'll concede, but I'm gonna say 2-1 as well. But I think between now and then there will be a signing, and I think that signing will contribute to the goal. There you go. That's my 2 pence. I actually said that Oscar Thorne would score in the last podcast, and now he's going to Salford. So,
yeah,
I'm not that accurate.
Yeah, who do we want rid of? They'll score again.
But yeah, I think 2 games where we've not been up to it, not been at our best. I think being away with a strong away following is the perfect remedy to turn it around and get us back in the win column. So hopefully that is what happens. Si, Dave, thank you very much for joining me and sharing your opinions. And I will no doubt chat to you again next week. So there you have it. That is episode number 9 of the Beyond the Barside podcast. A huge thank you to those who have joined in. So that is a huge thank you to Sam, Johnny, Si and Dave. Huge thank you to those who are listening, sharing and subscribing. Please do keep listening. Please do keep sharing. Please do keep subscribing. And we will be back next week with another episode. Thank you very much.